Unit 3.7 is all about classical conditioning. In classical conditioning, learning happens when two things are linked together over time. For example, if a child always hears a lullaby before bed, they might start to feel sleepy just from hearing the song. AP Psychology requires that you know all the classical conditioning concepts listed on the screen now. We'll go through them one by one, starting with the term acquisition. Acquisition is the first stage of learning something new. It's when a person or animal starts to connect two things together. For example, imagine a dog hears a bell and then gets food right after. At first, the bell doesn't mean anything, but if the bell rings every time food comes, the dog starts to expect food when it hears the bell. That learning process, when the dog starts to make the connection between the bell and the food, is called acquisition. It's when the learning is being acquired or picked up. An unconditioned stimulus is something that causes a natural reaction without the person or animal needing to learn it. For example, if you smell delicious pizza, you might start to feel hungry. You didn't have to be trained to feel hungry when you smell food. It just happens naturally. In this case, the smell of pizza is the unconditioned stimulus because it makes you feel hungry all on its own. An unconditioned response is the natural reaction that happens when you experience an unconditioned stimulus. Using the pizza example again, the hunger you feel when you smell the pizza is the unconditioned response. You didn't learn to feel hungry, it just happens automatically. It's like when you flinch if something comes near your face quickly. That reaction is natural and automatic, which is why it's called unconditioned. A conditioned stimulus is something that starts off as neutral. It doesn't mean anything at first, but after being paired with something important, it begins to cause a reaction. For example, let's go back to the dog and the bell. At first, the bell sound doesn't matter to the dog, but if the bell is always followed by food, the dog starts to expect food when it hears the bell. Now the bell becomes a conditioned stimulus because the dog has learned to react to it. A conditioned response is the learned reaction to something that used to mean nothing. Using the same example, once the dog hears the bell and starts to drool, even if no food shows up, that drooling is a conditioned response. It didn't happen before. The dog had to learn it by hearing the bell with the food over and over. So now the dog reacts to the bell in the same way it reacted to the food. Extinction is what happens when an association starts to fade away. Let's say the dog hears the bell, but now food never comes after it. Over time, the dog will stop drooling when it hears the bell because it learns that the bell doesn't mean food anymore. The reaction has died out, which is why it's called extinction. It doesn't mean the dog forgot completely. It just stopped responding the way it used to. Spontaneous recovery is when a learned response suddenly comes back after it had faded away. For example, imagine a dog learned to drool when it heard a bell, but then stopped drooling because the bell was no longer followed by food. That's extinction. A few days later, the bell rings again, and the dog suddenly drools even though no food comes. That surprise return of the old reaction is called spontaneous recovery. It's like the brain remembered the connection for a moment. Stimulus discrimination is when a person or animal learns to tell the difference between similar things and only reacts to the one that matters. Let's say a dog learns to drool when it hears a high-pitched bell. If it hears a low-pitched bell and doesn't drool, that means it knows the difference between the two sounds. It has learned that only the high-pitched bell means food is coming. That's stimulus discrimination, reacting only to the specific thing that was learned. Stimulus generalization is the opposite of discrimination. It happens when someone reacts to things that are similar to the original thing they learned. For example, if a dog learns to drool when it hears a high-pitched bell, and then also starts drooling when it hears a phone ring because it sounds kind of the same, that's stimulus generalization. The dog is treating similar sounds as if they all mean food is coming. Higher-order conditioning is when something new gets added to the chain of learning. Let's say a dog already learned to drool when it hears a bell because it knows the bell means food is coming. Now imagine you flash a light right before the bell rings. After a while, the dog starts drooling just when it sees the light, even if the bell doesn't ring. The dog has learned that the light predicts the bell, and the bell predicts the food. That's higher-order conditioning, learning built on top of a previous learning. Counter-conditioning is when you replace a bad or unwanted reaction with a better one by teaching a new connection. Imagine a kid who's scared of dogs. Every time a dog comes close, the kid gets nervous. But if the kid is given something they love, like their favorite candy, whenever a calm dog is nearby, they might start to feel better around dogs. Over time, they stop feeling scared and start feeling okay. That's counter-conditioning, changing the emotion linked to something by teaching a new, more positive reaction. Taste aversion is when you avoid a food because it once made you feel sick, even if the food wasn't the real cause. For example, if you eat spaghetti and then get the stomach flu later, your brain might link the sickness to the spaghetti. After that, just smelling or seeing spaghetti could make you feel queasy. That's taste aversion. Your body learns very quickly to stay away from something that it thinks made you sick, even after just one bad experience. A related term is one-trial learning, where a reaction to a stimulus was so strong that you developed a learned response after being exposed to that stimulus just once. The association is instantly so strong that it is not strengthened by further pairings. Biological preparedness is the idea that some things are easier for us to learn because our brains and bodies are wired for it. Think about how quickly people develop a fear of snakes or spiders, even if they've never had a bad experience with one. It's like the brain is already on alert for those things because, long ago, being afraid of them helped humans survive. On the other hand, it's much harder to develop a fear of something like a flower or a spoon because those things were never a threat. That's biological preparedness, our natural built-in readiness to learn some associations faster than others because they helped us stay safe in the past. Habituation is when you stop reacting to something, because it keeps happening over and over without anything important following it. Imagine you move to a new house near an airport. At first, every time a plane flies overhead, it's super loud and hard to ignore. But after a few days, you hardly notice it anymore. Your brain has figured out that the train noise doesn't matter, so it tunes it out. That's habituation, learning to stop responding to something that turns out to be harmless and predictable. If you're an AP psychology student, make sure you grab my free AP psychology course checklist to test your knowledge of the whole course. There's a link below to get it. It's completely free and a must-have for all my students. I'll also throw in my full AP psychology glossary and vocabulary bank, and my guide to the 5 hardest AP Psych questions that students get wrong in their exam. This video has been a snippet from my complete 4-hour AP Psych study guide video that covers the curriculum in one mega video. You can click that video on the screen now to watch it.